Captain Reyes studied the classified files with growing unease, her fingers trembling slightly as she swiped through evidence of the Zarkonians' true intentions. The holographic images showed human soldiers in unfamiliar combat armor, their faces frozen in expressions of determined ferocity as they battled creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness. What disturbed her most wasn't the combat footage. It was the clinical imagery of unconscious humans being modified in laboratory settings, neural implants attached to their cerebral cortexes. They'd been planning this for decades, she whispered to Dr. Hassan as he joined her in the empty conference room. The xenobiologist's usually calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by barely controlled anger. Those diplomatic gifts they presented today. I analyzed the crystalline structures, Hassan replied, projecting his findings onto the wall. They're neural mapping devices, designed specifically for human brains. They've been studying us, categorizing our responses to fear stimuli. Outside the window, Earth's first night with aliens continued as celebration lights danced across major cities worldwide. Citizens unaware of what their visitors truly wanted from humanity raised glasses in toast to a future of interstellar cooperation. The contrast between the jubilation below and the grim reality in the classified files created a cognitive dissonance that made Reyes feel physically ill. We need to inform the Security Council immediately, she decided, encrypting the files to her secure tablet. Hassan placed a warning hand on her arm. Think carefully, Elena. The Zarkonians clearly have technology far beyond ours. If we confront them directly, what choice do we have? She interrupted. Wait until they start harvesting our people as soldiers for their war. The door hissed open unexpectedly, revealing Ambassador Vexlar's towering crystalline form. His faceted eyes reflected the incriminating images still displayed on the wall. I see you've discovered what we hope to discuss tomorrow, the alien said, his telepathic voice resonating directly in their minds. Please understand, Captain, we did not wish to begin our relationship with deception. Yet here we are, Reyes replied coldly, her hand instinctively moving toward her sidearm. Vexlar made a gesture that might have been the alien equivalent of a sigh. The enemy we face, the one you see in those images, has consumed 12 advanced civilizations. We call them the Void Swarm, and they are approaching your sector of space. And you need cannon fodder, Hassan stated flatly. No, Vexlar corrected. We need survivors. Every species that has directly engaged the swarm has experienced complete psychological collapse, except yours. Something in human neurophysiology makes you uniquely resistant to their terror effect. We need to understand why. Reyes shared a look with Hassan, both processing the implications. Earth had just gained its first extraterrestrial allies, but with revelations that transformed celebration into calculation. If what Vexlar said was true, humanity was about to become the most valuable resource in a war they never knew existed. Show us everything, Reyes demanded. No more secrets. Then we decide if we help you. The alien nodded, its crystalline surface catching the light. Fair terms, Captain. But I must warn you. Knowing the full truth about the Void Swarm might make you wish we had never made contact at all. Commander Cole ran his hand along the Prometheus's newly installed neural interface station, feeling the cool metal beneath his fingertips. The reverse-engineered alien technology still had rough edges, literal and metaphorical, but it represented humanity's best hope for independence in a galaxy that clearly had plans for Earth that went beyond peaceful cooperation. System check complete, Commander, Lieutenant Sato reported, her eyes never leaving her console. The stealth systems are operating at 86% efficiency. Not perfect, but enough to mask our heat signature from Concord long-range scanners. Cole nodded, watching as his hand-picked crew of 38 men and women performed their duties with determined precision. They all knew the stakes. Each had been personally briefed by General Zhang about the classified information obtained from the Zarkonians' data repositories. If the Prometheus failed, humanity might forever remain a pawn in an interstellar war they hadn't chosen. Navigation. Plot a course for the Proxima Centauri staging area, Cole ordered. We'll run propulsion tests beyond Pluto's orbit, away from Concord observation posts. The truth was more complex than the cover story. Cole had no intention of simply testing the ship's systems. Intelligence gathered by Dr. Hassan suggested a restricted zone near Proxima Centauri contained something the Concord was desperately trying to hide from humanity. This mission would provide the first real answers about what humans were truly facing. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Senate, Ambassador Reyes maintained her carefully cultivated smile as she listened to the Zarkonian Trade Minister propose yet another mutually beneficial exchange. Earth minerals for limited technological knowledge, carefully filtered to keep humans dependent on Concord assistance. The proposal is generous, she acknowledged, while her datapad secretly recorded the minister's subtle tells, the slight crystalline shimmer that Hassan had identified as indicating deception in their species. However, Earth would appreciate access to the agricultural technology promised during our last session. The minister's faceted eyes flickered with something between annoyance and concern. Those systems require further adaptation for your planet's unique biosphere, perhaps in another cycle. Another delay, another excuse. Rice made a note in her encrypted journal, adding it to the growing pattern of technological gatekeeping. Behind her diplomatic mask, anger simmered. The Concord treated humanity like children given plastic tools while the adults kept the real equipment locked away. Her secure communicator vibrated with a message from General Zhang. Prometheus underway. Operation Lighthouse has begun. Raids allowed herself a momentary flicker of satisfaction before returning to the negotiations, while she kept the Concord representatives distracted with diplomatic minutiae. Cole and his crew would venture where no human was meant to go. The gamble was enormous. If discovered, the fragile alliance could shatter, potentially leaving Earth exposed to the void swarm without any protection. But the alternative was worse. Continuing as unwitting pawns, harvested for soldiers in a war whose true nature remained hidden. As Cole had said during his mission briefing, better to know the monster we're facing than imagine it in the dark. The Prometheus accelerated toward the edge of the solar system, carrying humanity's first real bid for independence among the stars. Silence enveloped the Galactic Senate chamber as the footage from the Prometheus's data crystals played on the massive central display. The Zarkonian High Chancellor's crystalline form seemed to dim under the weight of revelation, faceted surfaces reflecting the horror unfolding before the assembled delegates. You engineered us. Ambassador Reyes's voice cut through the silence, each word precise and cold. Modified human genetic material without consent. Created clones conditioned to fight your war. The images shifted to laboratory scenes. Human subjects suspended in gelatinous tanks, neural implants inserted into cerebral tissue, memory extraction devices attached to unconscious figures. Clinical, methodical, industrial in scale. What you call perfect warriors we call slaves. Rice continued, her diplomatic restraint finally abandoned. Earth deserves the truth before another human life is sacrificed. The High Chancellor's telepathic voice resonated with unusual emotion. Ambassador, please understand our desperation. Before discovering humans, 12 member species of the Concord have been driven to extinction by the Void Swarm. Their neural weapons attack the fundamental consciousness of sentient beings, inducing cascading fear responses that render conventional defense impossible. Dr. Hassan stepped forward, his scientific detachment barely masking his anger. And humans alone can withstand this effect. That's why you've been studying our neural patterns, creating soldiers from our genetic material. Yes, admitted the Chancellor. Your evolutionary history as both predator and prey, your unique ability to compartmentalize trauma, your capacity to face horror and continue functioning. These traits exist in no other species we've encountered. The human delegation exchanged glances, the implications settling like a physical weight. Lieutenant Park from the Prometheus spoke up, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The growth patterns we found on the derelict vessels, that's the swarm, isn't it? Not just consuming organic matter. but transforming it. The Zarkonian Minister of Defense activated a secure database, projecting new images that made even the battle-hardened Commander Cole pale. Worlds once teeming with life, now covered in iridescent, pulsing structures. Sentient beings partially absorbed into living architecture, consciousness preserved just enough to experience endless horror. The Void Swarm doesn't merely kill, explained the minister. It harvests consciousness itself, creating the psychic battery that powers its expansion. Every mind it captures strengthens its neural weapons. Ambassador Reyes stared at the grotesque imagery, her diplomatic training insufficient for this moment. And now they're heading toward Earth. Yes, confirmed the Chancellor. Your solar system sits directly in their expansion path. We estimate contact within 6 standard months. Commander Cole stepped forward, military bearing intact despite the existential threat laid bare. So you intended to use humanity as your defense without giving us the chance to prepare our own world. The Zarkonian representatives exchanged uncomfortable glances before the Chancellor responded with unexpected honesty. We feared that telling you the truth would cause your species to focus exclusively on defending Earth, a strategy that has failed for every civilization before you. We needed human soldiers throughout Concord space, not concentrated in one system. Reyes's expression hardened as she addressed the assembled council. That decision was never yours to make. As of this moment, Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Concord. We will defend humanity our way. The Prometheus shuddered as another volley of energy pulses struck nearby, the defensive shields absorbing most of the impact. On the bridge, Commander Cole maintained his calm demeanor despite the chaos erupting around him. The Void Swarm scout ships moved with unsettling organic fluidity, their biomechanical vessels pulsing with malevolent intelligence. Targeting solutions acquired, Lieutenant Sato announced, her fingers dancing across the tactical interface. Neural disruptors at full charge. Cole nodded. Fire pattern Delta. Remember, aim for their communication nodes, those bulbous structures at their dorsal junctions. The Prometheus unleashed streams of modified energy that carried encoded human thought patterns, memories of childhood fears overcome, battlefield courage, the unique human ability to face terror and continue functioning. Where the beams struck, the swarm vessels convulsed, their synchronized movements becoming erratic. It's working, Dr. Hassan observed from the science station, monitoring the enemy's response. The neural patterns are causing cascading failures throughout their hive network. They expected to encounter paralyzed victims, not predators who evolved to function under fear response. Outside the viewports, the rest of humanity's hastily assembled defense fleet implemented Cole's unconventional battle plan. Smaller vessels executed maneuvers that contradicted standard tactical doctrine, deliberately exposing apparent vulnerabilities that enticed swarm ships into prepared kill zones. Earth vessels sacrificed optimal defensive positioning to gain superior attack angles, calculating risks in ways the hive mind couldn't anticipate. We're thinking as individuals while they operate as a collective, Cole explained to his officers during the height of battle. That's our advantage, unpredictability. In Earth's Situation Room, General Zhang watched the battle telemetry with senior military leaders. The holographic display showed the swarm's initial advance faltering as human forces disrupted their coordinated attacks. The Concord expected us to be overwhelmed, Zhang noted. They don't understand what humanity has endured throughout our history. We've faced extinction-level threats before, ice ages, plagues, world wars, and each time we adapted and survived. The neural disruption technology proved devastatingly effective. The human thought patterns, broadcast directly into the swarm's communication networks, created something akin to individualistic chaos within their collective consciousness, the equivalent of suddenly giving independent thoughts to cells in a body. On the Prometheus's bridge, a cheer erupted as the remaining swarm scouts began a disorganized retreat. Lieutenant Park's voice rose above the celebration. They're withdrawing from the solar system, Commander. Cole allowed himself a brief smile before addressing his crew. This was just a reconnaissance force. They'll be back with adaptations to our tactics and technology. But today, we've proven something crucial. The Void Swarm can be fought. They can be beaten. Beyond the Pluto defense perimeter, the Concorde observation vessels maintained their blockade, their sensors recording every detail of humanity's unexpected victory. Within their communication networks, urgent messages flashed back to the Galactic Senate. The humans had done the impossible, not merely survived contact with the swarm, but driven them back with technologies developed independently in mere months. The Zarkonian High Chancellor received the reports with a mixture of hope and unease. Perhaps, he communicated to the High Council, we underestimated them in ways we cannot yet comprehend. The memorial service for the Thermopylae crew broadcast across all human settlements, from Earth's teeming cities to the farthest outposts. Commander Cole stood at attention with his officers as 26 empty capsules launched into space, each bearing the name and personal effects of a crew member who had given everything to protect humanity. They knew it was a one-way mission. Lieutenant Sato whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Captain Chen had evacuation options. They chose to stay. Cole nodded, his expression solemn. That's what the Concorde species can't comprehend about us. The concept of choosing certain death for strategic advantage. It's outside their evolutionary framework. The synchronized reactor detonation that destroyed both the Thermopylae and the swarm colony ship had protected Earth's water production facilities on Europa, saving millions of lives. But the psychological impact of the sacrifice resonated far beyond its tactical significance. In his laboratory deep beneath the Olympus Mons research facility on Mars, Dr. Hassan reviewed neural recordings captured during the battle. The data showed something remarkable. In their final moments, the Thermopylae crew had experienced neither panic nor despair, but a state of almost transcendent resolve. Their neural patterns during the final countdown were extraordinary, Hassan explained to General Zhang during their encrypted communication. They achieved a state of complete psychological unity. When they broadcast those patterns directly into the swarm high ship, it created catastrophic confusion, like introducing the concept of willing death into a consciousness that only understands survival at all costs. Zhang's holographic image nodded thoughtfully. Can we weaponize this effect without requiring actual sacrifice? Already working on it, Hassan replied. We're synthesizing the neural signatures from the Thermopylae recordings. Combined with our existing disruptor technology, we might be able to simulate the effect. Meanwhile, Earth's industrial transformation continued at unprecedented speed. In Detroit, assembly lines that once produced personal vehicles now manufactured modular armor units designed specifically to resist swarm biotechnology. Silicon Valley engineers collaborated with military strategists to develop countermeasures based on human optical illusions, patterns that exploited fundamental differences between human and swarm visual processing. Most promising was the development of cognitive dissonance bombs, devices that broadcast contradictory human thought patterns simultaneously, creating effects similar to logical paradoxes in the highly structured swarm consciousness. On board a Concorde observation vessel, the Zarkonian commander Vextal studied footage of human defense preparations with growing unease. His report to the High Council contained an assessment that would circulate with increasing urgency throughout Concorde leadership. Human warfare defies conventional analysis. Where other species optimize for minimal losses, humans sometimes accept greater casualties to achieve superior strategic position. They utilize deception, misdirection, and psychological warfare as primary tactics rather than last resorts. Most concerning, their neural patterns show increased combat effectiveness under conditions of emotional distress, precisely the opposite reaction the swarm's terror weapons are designed to induce. The report concluded with an observation that would fundamentally alter the Concorde's understanding of their former allies. We may have inadvertently introduced the perfect predator to counter the Void Swarm. a species that turns fear itself into a weapon. Director Rais studied the Ithnar ambassador's nervous movements as the insectoid representative finalized the terms of their secret alliance. The ambassador's antennae twitched constantly, compound eyes darting toward the exits of Earth's hidden diplomatic bunker. The Concord will consider this treason. The Ithnar clicked through its translator. Our queen risks everything to ally with humans. Rais maintained a composed expression despite the weight of responsibility. 7 species had now approached Earth with similar offers, advanced technology, in exchange for protection against both the swarm and, increasingly, against Concord reprisals. Your queen recognizes the changing reality of our galaxy, Rais replied, signing the encrypted agreement with her biometric signature. The Concord created this situation when they chose deception over partnership. After the ambassador departed via cloaked shuttle, Rais reviewed the secured communications from Commander Cole's fleet. The reports confirmed what intelligence had suggested. The Void Swarm had dramatically altered its strategy, abandoning conventional military targets to focus on civilian infrastructure. Luna Colony's destruction represented their most blatant shift toward psychological warfare. What the swarm couldn't comprehend was how fundamentally they'd misunderstood human psychology. On the bridge of his newly commissioned vessel, Commander Cole, now Admiral Cole after a field promotion, reviewed the battle plans for Operation Righteous Response. The attack would take his forces deeper into swarm-controlled space than any human ships had ventured before. The neural pattern analysis confirms it, his executive officer reported. Crew combat effectiveness has increased by 28% since Luna. Reaction times are down. Tactical aggression and coordination are up. Cole nodded grimly. The swarm expected terror to paralyze us. Instead, they've triggered something primal in our evolutionary history. The protective fury that turns prey into predators when their young are threatened. Across the fleet, similar transformations were evident. Pilots who had shown exceptional skill during training now demonstrated almost precognitive reactions. Engineers worked without sleep to modify weapon systems, producing innovations that would have taken years under normal circumstances. The combined grief and rage of Luna's destruction had crystallized into a cold, focused determination that amplified rather than hindered human performance. In the Strategic Operations Center, targeting specialists had identified 3 hive queens coordinating swarm activities along the Orion Spur. The strike would be simultaneous, a devastating blow to the enemy's command structure. This isn't mere retaliation, Cole explained during the final briefing. With these targets eliminated, we create a defensive buffer that will buy Earth months to complete the ODIN network. As the human battle group entered faster-than-light travel, the Zarkonian High Council received troubling analysis from their Behavioral Science Division. The report contained simulations comparing human combat patterns before and after the Luna colony attack. The data is consistent across all engagements, the head researcher reported. Human neural responses to what they perceive as atrocity actually enhances their combat capability. Their endocrine system floods their bodies with compounds that increase strength, speed, and aggression while maintaining decision-making functions. The High Chancellor's crystalline form dimmed slightly as he contemplated the implications. Then the swarm has made the gravest possible error in their calculation. They believed they were hunting prey, only to discover they were provoking an apex predator. Admiral Cole stood at the Ragnarok's observation deck, watching as his battle group reclaimed the Proxima Centauri system. Below, ground teams methodically cleared the remnants of swarm bioarchitecture from the planet's surface, rescuing the few surviving native Proxarians from half-absorbed states. "We're documenting everything," Lieutenant Park reported, her uniform bearing the new insignia of Xenobiological Warfare Specialist. The Proxarian survivors are providing crucial intelligence about swarm assimilation processes. Cole nodded, studying the tactical display where human vessels systematically deployed Dr. Hassan's biological countermeasures throughout the system. The neural-severing agents had exceeded all expectations, breaking the swarm's hive connections and leaving individual units vulnerable to conventional weapons. The Proxarians were under Concord protection, Cole noted grimly. The same protection they'd promised Earth. 4 million sentients reduced to fewer than 10,000 survivors. The reclamation of Proxima Centauri marked the seventh system liberated by human forces in less than 2 months, an unprecedented pace of advance against an enemy that had previously seemed unstoppable. Each victory revealed the same pattern. The Concord had abandoned these worlds, writing off their populations as acceptable losses. On the Ragnarok's command deck, Communications Officer Chen intercepted a Concord transmission about the ODIN network. "They're tracking our quantum entanglement satellites," Chen reported. "The Zarkonian Military Council is debating whether to classify the network as a violation of Concord defense protocols." Cole's expression hardened. "They ignored those protocols when they abandoned these systems. Forward the intercept to Earth Command, and Director Reyes immediately." In her secure diplomatic facility, Director Reyes received the intelligence while preparing for a meeting with representatives from the Mirchalon, a previously neutral aquatic species now seeking Earth's protection. The Concord's planned sabotage of ODIN represented a dangerous escalation, moving from containment to active interference with human defense systems. "Prepare the evidence package," she instructed her staff. "Include footage from all 7 liberated systems, emphasizing the Concord's abandonment of their protectorate worlds. Transmit simultaneously to every species leadership council, Concord members and independents alike." The diplomatic masterstroke unfolded with precision timing. As Concord representatives gathered to discuss containment strategies for the human problem, their secure communications erupted with the evidence package. Species after species witnessed the stark contrast between Concord promises and human actions. Abandoned worlds versus liberation efforts, secret containment plans versus transparent alliance offers. The Zarkonian spy vessel MV-31, captured near Earth's ODIN deployment zone, provided the final piece of evidence: detailed plans to sabotage human defenses, while publicly maintaining the pretense of non-interference. On the vessel's bridge, General Zhang personally oversaw the extraction of intelligence. "They've been preparing containment strategies since our first victory," he informed Earth's Unified Defense Council. "The Concord fears what happens after the swarm is defeated. They fear us." The revelation triggered diplomatic chaos throughout Concord space. The Ithnar publicly announced their alliance with Earth, followed within hours by the Mirchalon and Volderi. The Concord's unified front fractured as species calculated their futures in a galaxy where humans were rapidly becoming the dominant military power. In the Zarkonian High Council chamber, the defense minister's assessment left the assembled leaders in uncomfortable silence. "We created the perfect weapon against the swarm. Now we must determine how to coexist with it once the common enemy is destroyed." Admiral Cole watched the battle unfold from the Ragnarok's command center, holographic displays showing the most complex military engagement in human history. Around the dying star of Nexus Void, hundreds of vessels from 8 different species fought against the concentrated might of the swarm. At the center of the maelstrom floated the swarm's central nexus, a massive structure pulsing with the combined consciousness of billions of assimilated minds. "Neural disruption squadrons report heavy resistance," Lieutenant Sato reported, her voice steady despite the casualty numbers scrolling across her screen. "The swarm has adapted countermeasures against our standard patterns." Cole nodded grimly. "They were bound to evolve defenses. Signal all squadrons to implement contingency protocol Thanatos." Throughout the Allied fleet, human neural interface operators received the new orders. The synthesized patterns that had previously confused and disrupted the swarm's hive mind would no longer suffice. Now, the operators would broadcast their actual, unfiltered consciousness, a far more potent but potentially dangerous approach. In the Ragnarok's specialized medical bay, Dr. Hassan monitored the neural interface chamber, where 20 volunteers had agreed to risk their minds in the final assault. Unlike previous engagements, these operators would project their entire consciousness into the swarm network, not just disruptive patterns, but the full spectrum of human thought and emotion. Humanity has always populated its mythology with monsters, Hassan reminded Cole during their final review of the plan. For hundreds of thousands of years, we told stories about creatures in the darkness, preparing our neural architecture for precisely this moment. As the battle reached its critical phase, the human operators activated the consciousness inversion engine, Hassan's masterwork. Their minds projected directly into the swarm's neural network, carrying concepts fundamentally alien to the hive. Individual choice, sacrifice, hope in the face of inevitable death, love that transcends self-preservation. On the tactical displays, the effect rippled through the swarm fleet like a shockwave. Ships collided or fired upon each other as the central coordination collapsed into chaos. A hive mind, confronted with the paradoxes of human consciousness, began to fragment into competing directives. The Mir Shallan admiral, coordinating the aquatic species vessels, sent an urgent communication to Cole. The disruption exceeds all projections. Their formation is collapsing throughout the entire sector. The final assault on the central nexus came at tremendous cost. Thousands of Allied vessels were lost, including 3 human carriers. But as the consciousness inversion engine reached maximum output, the nexus itself began to destabilize, its perfect symmetry distorting as competing individualistic impulses corrupted its unified purpose. When the nexus finally imploded, the psychic